You want to know what Farage and Reform are doing on their rare visits to Parliament? They're voting against our employment rights bill. They talk the language of workers' rights online and on the doorstep, but they voted against banning fire and rehire. They voted against scrapping exploitative zero-hour contracts. They voted against sick leave and maternity pay. And what about the NHS? They want to charge people to use our NHS. They claim to be the party of patriotism, but they're fawning over Putin. No, they are not the answer for working people in Britain. And they are not the answer for Scotland.
Keir Starmer is now trying everything he can to discredit Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party. That's because he holds a grudge against Farage, who is challenging him against sending British troops to Ukraine, especially when there is no need. Since this disturbs his broader plan for Ukraine, because Farage is a powerful voice, Starmer decided to take down Farage. However, before Farage could respond for himself, Starmer was humiliated by Katie Hopkins, an outspoken political commentator who always owns Starmer. And, in her latest interview, she literally destroyed Starmer and what he is trying to do while discrediting others.
Trump, in his first 100 days in office, will have ended the war, which was his campaign pledge, and he will have honoured that pledge. But the interesting thing, of course, is that success has many fathers. So what you're going to see is Keir Starmer and Macron and a number of other weaklings from Europe trying to claim that they helped bring about peace in Ukraine, that they played a part in bringing about peace. And of course that cannot be true, because if it were true, they would have sorted it before. If it were true, they could have done something about it during the Biden administration.
So, what more did Hopkins say about Keir Starmer and what he is doing? In this video, let's know about the whole story. Keir Starmer's latest public humiliation is nothing short of a political disaster. In his relentless attempt to discredit Nigel Farage and Reform UK, he has once again overplayed his hand, exposing not only his political desperation, but also the deep flaws in his foreign policy and domestic agenda. This entire drama began when Starmer, clearly rattled by Farage's influence, attempted to paint him as a reckless populist who votes against bills that support working people. But anyone paying attention knows that Starmer's real vendetta against Farage has nothing to do with domestic policy. It has everything to do with Ukraine. The hostility that Keir Starmer directs toward Nigel Farage is far more than just political rivalry. It is a desperate attempt to silence a major threat to his carefully constructed foreign policy agenda. Farage is one of the few British politicians daring enough to question the reckless escalation of UK involvement in Ukraine. Unlike Starmer, who blindly follows the pro-war consensus, Farage has exposed the contradictions, the financial motivations, and the deception behind Britain's expanding role in the conflict.
It may be a great irony that a Remainer Prime Minister used Brexit freedoms as effectively as he did yesterday. Indeed, as Number 10 briefed, we are now in a unique position compared to the rest of Europe, and yesterday was a triumph. I also applaud him making such positive words about President Trump and our relationship with America, even if nobody behind him agrees. But here's the key. President Zelensky has now accepted that he's going to sign the minerals agreement with America. And America's going to put in 100 billion or whatever it is, and thousands of Americans will be in Ukraine. Is that of itself enough of a security guarantee? No. Or does it mean that we need to send British troops? And if we do, given the size of our army, how many?
By doing so, he has ripped apart one of Starmer's key narratives that Britain must escalate its military engagement to secure peace. With the ground shifting beneath his feet, Starmer finds himself scrambling to maintain control of the debate, and his frustration is turning into panic. Therefore, instead of answering questions posed by Farage, Starmer chose to change the discussion. He tried to focus on who was the aggressor in the conflict, instead of answering whether the deployment of British troops to Ukraine was essential.
The mineral deal is not enough on its own, but can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
Farage's confrontation with Starmer was not just another political debate. It was a strategic dismantling of Starmer's entire Ukraine policy. His question cut straight to the heart of the issue. Why is Britain preparing to send troops to Ukraine when the United States has already secured its interests there through economic means? This wasn't just a rhetorical attack. It was a direct exposure of a glaring contradiction. The United States, under its recent negotiations, has secured a $100 billion mineral deal with Ukraine, putting thousands of American workers and businesses into the country. This is strategic deterrence at its finest. By integrating US corporate interests into Ukraine, Washington has made it abundantly clear that its presence is enough to prevent Russian aggression without deploying troops. Putin may challenge NATO forces, but he would never risk direct confrontation with the US military by targeting American citizens working on Ukrainian soil. This deal alone shatters Starmer's justification for deeper UK military involvement. If Ukraine's security is already being reinforced through economic influence rather than military intervention, then why is Starmer still pushing for boots on the ground? What possible rationale exists for sending British troops into a volatile conflict zone, particularly when Britain's own military is facing recruitment shortages, funding gaps, and a declining defence budget? Farage's question didn't just poke holes in Starmer's argument, it exposed the entire illusion. If the US believes economic leverage is the best way to secure Ukraine's future, then Starmer's insistence on military intervention becomes indefensible. And that's precisely why he had no real response. Caught off guard and unable to provide a logical answer, Starmer resorted to his usual political playbook: smears and deflections. He didn't engage with Farage's points because he couldn't. Instead, he defaulted to the same tired, overused accusations that weak politicians use when they have no real argument left.
Nigel Farage is fawning over Putin. That's not patriotism.
In July, Reform UK fought the election on a policy to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Are you Nigel Farage in disguise?
Nigel Farage didn't even turn up to the debate in Parliament today. Nigel Farage is fawning over Putin. That's not patriotism. That is not what working people need. What I've done is take the duty of Prime Minister seriously, which is to ensure that our citizens are safe and secure, and this decision is made to ensure that they are safe and secure.
Rather than addressing the legitimate concerns Farage raised, Starmer attempted to paint the debate as a moral issue. He framed the discussion as a simple binary choice. Either you support sending British troops to Ukraine, or you are falling over for Putin. Either you back military intervention, or you are betraying Ukraine. This kind of simplistic, black and white thinking is dishonest, dangerous, and intellectually bankrupt. Questioning reckless escalation is not the same as supporting Russia, a distinction that Starmer deliberately ignores. His false moral absolutism is designed to shut down debate and silence anyone who challenges the establishment's pro-war narrative.
We see clearly before us the test of our times, a crossroads in our history. I announced a deal that perfectly symbolises the new era. A partnership with Ukraine that allows them to use £1.6 billion of UK export finance to buy 5,000 air defence missiles manufactured in Belfast. Mr. Speaker, that means UK jobs, UK skills, UK finance pulling together for our national interests, putting Ukraine in the strongest possible position for peace and protecting innocent civilians from the terror of Russian drones.
Farage's challenge was devastating because it exposed the truth. Starmer's Ukraine policy has nothing to do with defending democracy or securing Britain's interests. Instead, it is about aligning himself with the transatlantic war lobby and ensuring his own political survival among Western elites. This suggests Starmer is not an independent leader crafting a foreign policy that benefits Britain. He is a follower, blindly executing the globalist agenda dictated by Brussels. His actions make no strategic sense for the UK, but they serve the interests of the war hawks who profit from endless conflict. That's what even Hungary said, hinting that the elites in Europe don't want peace for Ukraine. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive videos on the groundbreaking changes happening in British politics. Let's continue now. Now consider the absurdity of Starmer's position. The United States is reducing direct military involvement in Ukraine, yet Starmer wants the UK to step in and escalate the war. Trump is pushing for a peace deal within 100 days, yet Starmer is doubling down on war rhetoric. The UK military is already struggling with recruitment and funding, yet Starmer is diverting more resources into a foreign conflict with no clear endgame. Every single step Starmer takes on Ukraine serves the interests of the war lobby, not the British people. And that is precisely why he despises Farage so much, because Farage has the political influence to expose the entire plan. However, instead of answering Farage, Starmer tried discrediting him. This proves he has no real argument left. But before Farage even had to respond further, Katie Hopkins delivered one of the most brutal political takedowns of the year. She not only highlighted his hypocrisy, but also exposed the fraudulent narratives surrounding the Ukraine war, the Western political class, and the weaponization of the law.
Three things that we can expect to happen next with the war in Ukraine. Firstly, is that Trump will have brought about peace. After 3 years and, $200 billion of aid being sent by every country and impotent leaders doing nothing but perpetuating the problem, Trump, in his first 100 days in office, will have ended the war, which was his campaign pledge, and he will have honoured that pledge. But the interesting thing, of course, is that success has many fathers. So what you're going to see is Keir Starmer and Macron and a number of other weaklings from Europe trying to claim that they helped bring about peace.
Hopkins' first observation was simple, but brilliantly destructive. The very same leaders who did nothing to stop the war will now try to claim credit when Trump ends it. She predicted that once Trump achieves peace in Ukraine, figures like Starmer and Macron will rush to rewrite history, pretending that they played a role in securing a deal. This exposes the cynical nature of European politics. For years, Starmer, Macron, and others have poured billions into Ukraine, prolonging the conflict while posturing as moral saviors. Yet when real diplomacy is at play, they are nowhere to be found. If Starmer actually cared about securing peace, why didn't he do anything before now? If Macron truly wanted to negotiate, why did he wait for Trump to take the lead?
In Ukraine, that they played a part in bringing about peace. And of course, that cannot be true, because if it were true, they would have sorted it before. If it were true, they could have done something about it during the Biden administration. If it were true, they wouldn't have been rushing out to be in Ukraine to get their pictures in their camo gear and their new boots that they just got bought by their PR person to get the clicks and look like the strongman. And if it were true, it wouldn't be the case that they kept inviting Zelensky over for more chats, more photo opportunities, more speeches in Westminster or in the EU Parliament. Something would have been done before. This is to Trump's credit.
The answer is clear. These leaders never wanted peace. War served their political and financial interests. But now that peace is inevitable under Trump, they will desperately try to attach themselves to it, hoping that the public won't notice their hypocrisy. However, Hopkins's second observation was just as devastating. She revealed that even if Trump delivers peace, the left will never give him credit for it. Figures like David Lammy, Starmer's foreign secretary, have spent years demonizing Trump and his supporters. They mocked his foreign policy, they dismissed his calls for diplomacy, and they sneered at the very idea that peace was possible.
The second thing is you can expect Trump to get no thanks for it whatsoever. All the people who have spent their whole time putting him down, putting MAGA down, trying to be dismissive about him, trying to call him names. David Lammy, the foreign secretary here in the UK, who currently looks like an inflatable bowling ball with eyeballs on it. And the only thing about a bowling ball is at least you can put 3 fingers in a bowling ball. I've only got 2 for David Lammy. Regardless, Trump won't get the credit that he should because the left, the Democrats, as you see from the ones not standing to applaud a child at the State of the Union address, they are so bitter because the thing they cannot tolerate is the other side winning. And Trump and America are winning so hard right now, it almost hurts, but it doesn't hurt me because I love it. The other thing...
Now, as Trump prepares to prove them all wrong, they are panicking. Hopkins pointed out that these same figures who claim to support Ukraine will refuse to celebrate the war's end because it will mean admitting they were wrong all along. Their hatred for Trump is so irrational that they would rather see the war continue than acknowledge that Trump's diplomacy was right. And that's exactly why Starmer is still clinging to outdated war rhetoric. Even as the landscape shifts, he refuses to accept reality because accepting reality would mean admitting his entire Ukraine strategy was a mistake. Hopkins' final prediction was perhaps the most chilling. Zelensky's role as a Western puppet is coming to an end. She argued that Zelensky was never a real leader. He was a manufactured figure created by the Western establishment to serve their geopolitical agenda. And now that the war is ending, he is becoming an inconvenience. Hopkins predicted that, much like other Western puppets, Zelensky will soon be discarded, quietly pushed aside in favor of a new political narrative.
Zelensky doesn't seem to have realised that his usefulness is up. He was always a puppet, he was fully paid for, it's why he's a billionaire now. If you look at material of him dancing at parties or dressed in latex in high heels, that's more of his, what he's actually there for. That's his talent, if you will, and if he does have one. He's been playing a politician for the people who funded him, who created a political party for him to lead, who put him into the minds of Ukrainians as a leader by doing a TV show that was over-promoted. Now his usefulness has expired. He is now past his expiry date. And I would never wish ill of anyone, and I would never wish violence on anyone. But were he to turn up, locked inside, for example, a North Face bag, padlocked on the outside, left in a bath, with the central heating turned on full, I feel pretty sure at this point that people would report that there were no suspicious circumstances and Zelensky was in that bag from that.
The takeaway from this entire fiasco is simple. Starmer is not fit to lead. He has been exposed as a weak, cowardly, and dishonest politician who prioritizes his own image over the well-being of his country. Nigel Farage challenged him, Katie Hopkins finished him, and now he stands humiliated, his credibility in tatters. His reckless foreign policy, domestic agenda, and blatant hypocrisy have all been laid bare. This was not just a defeat, this was a total collapse. What do you think? What is Starmer trying to do by going on a different path than Trump for Ukraine? Isn't it true that he is sabotaging the peace deal and trying to discredit anyone who challenges him on this? In the comments section right below, share your thoughts on whether Starmer wants to end the Ukraine conflict or prolong it while risking British troops' lives and the country's prosperity. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get more updates on British politics and how events are changing it. Until the next video, stay tuned.